20th, 2014, a mass shooting occurred in Kiev, Ukraine, during a protest to rebel unconstitutional government. More than 50 people were killed during this event. The incident leads to a stronger protest known as the Euromaidan, which was a series of protests and violence that occurred as a result of Russia cutting off oil to Ukraine. Ukraine wanted to join the EU, but Russia's uneasy relations towards the EU prevented this from happening.
Eventually, people began to protest this corrupt government under Viktor Yanukovych. A recent ICC trial declared Ukrainians were not guilty for the police violence and crime. Russia's continuous influence in the Ukraine has brought so much hatred, pain, and cruelty towards Ukrainians. This isn't the first genocide to happen in the Ukraine. Back when Stalin was head of the Soviet Union, the Holodomor, meaning death by hunger, took the lives of over 7 million people.
Clearly, you can see that Ukraine's location between Poland and Russia has been a zone of conflict for centuries. After World War I, Soviet Union took over Ukraine. This new government under Russia allowed some farmers to flourish. However, once Stalin rose to power in 1930, he completely destroyed it. He abolished any Ukrainian advancement and started his own agricultural reforms. One of his goals was collectivism. What is collectivism? It is the policy of the Russian government taking in charge of all large productive lands, and peasant farmers work for a minimum wage, rather than owning their land and receiving their profit from their sold goods.
Another reform was the 5-year plans, which put extreme quotas that had to be met within certain deadlines. This hardcore plan was to increase industrialization, manufactured goods, and production of grains and other food produce from farmlands. All of the goals of the 5-year plans were completely unrealistic, such as a 250% increase in industrial development and a 330% increase in heavy industry within 1 year. As John Green once said, it is unsure whether these reforms were stupid or intentionally evil. Enacted in 1928, it ended in 1932, unless you include Mao's copy-paste methods in China that killed many more people in his country about 20 years later. Thanks a lot, Stalin. However, in Mao's defense, he didn't know any better. Other countries did nothing about this because Russia's huge grain exports supported trade deals with the West, which were not to be disturbed due to the profits on both sides. The USSR used these profits to further fund the modernization, translated as the starving of more people in the nation. Opportunely timed photo shoots and the censorship of journalism also guaranteed that the supposed famine did not exist at all.
Eventually, these unrealistic goals had a heavy toll on the kulaks. Kulaks are Ukraine's peasant farmer class, which was most of the population. Kulaks demanded for higher wages, but Stalin had no mercy for them. He increased demands for production and deported anyone to concentration camps in Siberia. He ordered that all trade must be stopped, and anyone who tried to seek food from their farmlands would be killed. He even used a secret police and military blockade. These agricultural policies created a man-made famine that killed over 10 million people. The Soviet Union hid this starvation among Ukrainians until recent books such as Harvest of Despair and Harvest of Sorrow brought the Western countries' attention to this cruelty.
The same resistance and hate can be seen by Ukrainians today. The International Criminal Court is in the midst of trying the government of Ukraine for crimes against humanity involving Maiden Day protests around the country. The latest argument of street violence began when protesters attacked the police line and set fires outside Parliament. Parliament was stalling on taking up a constitutional reform to limit the presidential powers. Armed with water cannons, stun grenades, and rubber bullets, police dismantled some barricades. However, the protesters held their ground through the night, encircling the protest camp with new burning barricades of tires, furniture, and other things.
The latest bout of street violence began Tuesday, February 18th of 2014, when protesters attacked police lines and set fires outside Parliament, accusing Yanukovych of ignoring their demands to enact constitutional reforms that will limit the president's power, a key opposition demand. Parliament, dominated by his supporters, was stalling on taking up a constitutional reform to limit presidential powers. Police responded by attacking the protest camp. Armed with water cannons, stun grenades, and rubber bullets, police dismantled some barricades, but the protesters held their ground through the night, encircling the protest camp with new burning barricades of tires, furniture, and debris.
After a series of violent events towards protesters in Kiev, leaving 100 of them dead, President Yanukovych signed the agreement on settlement of political crises in the Ukraine. The next day, he fled the country and was removed from office by the Rada, on the 22nd of February in 2014.
In conclusion, the Ukraine has had a complicated and terrible history. There's still so much cruelty in the world, and genocide isn't just a thing of the past. The Euromaidan ICC trials are still ongoing, even now. From 1932 to 2014, we've seen the darker parts of the Ukraine.